So, starting off my vocab entry for reflections of the cosmic perspective, the first thing I need to do is find a word. Now, this has to be a word that I feel like it's meaty enough that I can dig into and start to question. So, there are some words that I don't think are really going to fit well for me. I want to kind of find something that I think is interesting, something that I think is unusual, something that stands out to me. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's a word you know or not. Sometimes words that you're really comfortable with, you can have a lot of associations with, and that can be really helpful. Other words might be new words, but you have a lot of stuff you can go into. So you might want to be careful with the word you choose. The word I like here is pirouetting. The other thing is, if you are having trouble with the word you've chosen, try a different word and see if that goes better. So I like the word pirouetting. I'm going to go ahead and copy the entire sentence that's in. Okay, it's not the entire sentence, but I'm going to take the little comma section, parenthetical, that it's in, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that into the document. It just helps me think about what I'm writing or where I'm going to see the context in which it's been used. We know that context affects the values of words. So that's the first thing. The next thing is I want to make sure that I've got a clear understanding of what a pirouette is. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to look that up. Pirouetting. And Google says to perform a pirouette. Well, that's not terribly useful. But I see this down here, how to do a pirouette ballet dance. So I'm going to go ahead and look at that. And I don't need to watch all of it. I just want to see. So a pirouette is a dance move used in ballet. And it helps me to kind of picture it. So here we go. So it's just this move where they twirl. Hand gestures probably not needed. So that really helps me understand it. So I'm going to put this in my own words and just kind of say, okay, here's my definition. I'm going to say it's a dance move performed in ballet. It is a ballet specific thing. Usually I think the spin is on one's toes, but I'm not sure. Now I should clarify, this is not going to be what my entry looks like. Right now, all I'm doing is trying to get the raw material that I can craft the entry from. So the next thing I want to do is I want to think about my associations. I'm going to be honest, I don't have a lot of associations for pirouette. What I do have some associations for, though, is dance and ballet, and those are associated with pirouette. So I want to go ahead and think about those. Ballet, I think of it about as being very refined. I think about ballet as being very precise. The dancers in ballet do tons of training, and each move means something very specific. It is a very precise dance, and so that's something that definitely comes up. There's a delicateness to ballet, I think, that definitely kind of comes to mind. Another thing I'm thinking about right now is not only is it precise, not only is it refined, but it's intentional. Dance is something that doesn't happen accidentally. It's, as this says, it's choreographed. And so there's some intentionality here that I think is really interesting when we're using a word like pirouette, or when we're talking about the universe. These are all things that I kind of connect up. Ballet, it's an art form. It's a show. So that's something. I think about theater here. maybe not theater like a play, but like professional dance performances and kind of sitting in the theater and watching. Um, so these are all things I'm really connecting up with ballet and with dancers, ballet, it's human. So I feel like this is really humanizing the idea of the universe. Um, and it's something that I can really clearly imagine. I know what a pirouette looks like. Thank you, YouTube. Um, and so it puts this in a very imagery based realm for me. And so that's something I might want to talk about is imagery. So what I'm really talking about right now is some of my associations with these words. And if I were to go back and look at some of my vocab entry pieces, I want to look at what do I associate with. Oh, is it slang? Is it jargon? It's jargon. This is a technical term. I'm going to go ahead and just make a new line. This is a really technical terminology. It's formal. I would even go as far as saying that it leans to the kind of fancy. So this has a really specific thing, has a really specific kind of audience. So the next thing I really need to do is I want to explain how the specific word affects how you understand the piece, the whole. Well, that's really the entry itself. I don't know, pirouetting, the sound of it, I don't know if it matters. It comes from French. It is, the word itself has kind of an elegance. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and include that elegance because that's another thing I think about when I think of ballet, is I think about it as being very, like a very, very elegant thing. So these are all kind of associations I have with it. The next thing I want to do is I want to think about my synonyms. The reason why is I really want to think about how other words that they could have used instead might have conveyed similar ideas or might not have conveyed similar ideas. And so I like having a list of synonyms to look at, not because I can't necessarily come up with some of them, but because there might be things I don't think about, and somehow just looking at them makes me go like, oh, these, this. I can't spell, so we're just going to copy and paste. I like using the thesaurus. And again, I just want to see like gyration, I would not have thought of, but I want to go ahead and take. Gyration has another very specific connotation. I'm not sure I want to think about gyrating planets. That's an entirely different kind of thought process. So that's something I could talk about. Maybe I won't. Maybe gyration will not come into my writing. It would be a sad, sad day, but it might happen. I'm noticing some words here that I see a lot more in association with specifically astronomy, things like revolution and rotation and orbit. So I want to make sure I include those. I find it odd that he didn't choose to use something like that. Those are so connected with astronomy, so it seems unusual, and I want to look at what's different about those things. Other things like spin and twirl, twist. These are also things that could have been done, but they have kind of a different idea to them. They have a different feel to them. They're not as technical, they're not as specific or formal as a word like pirouette. So I think I'm getting kind of an idea of what I want to talk about. It seems to me, when I'm looking at these, I see a major difference between things like twist and twirl. and spin, those almost seem like they're too common and almost childish. That is not the feeling I get from this essay as a whole. It seems reverent. It seems kind of awestruck. It seems enamored with the universe. And so that is the kind of thing that I get with ballet, this idea of people sitting back in the audience and watching it with amazement and watching it with awe and watching it for the beauty of it. These are things I imagine he's trying to invoke. So that's kind of what I want to create. Now I'm going to leave this for now. I normally would delete this, but I'd only delete it when I was done using it because I have all this information here that I could use. So I'm just going to go ahead and start it off and say, in Neil deGrasse Tyson's essay. I think I spelled that right. Nope. I'm going to go ahead and name the essay. And essays go in quotes. And I'm going to give some context to this quote. I do want to include the quote because that's going to help the reader to put this into context. So it's going to make a lot more sense. Even if they've read the essay, knowing where specifically we're talking about in the essay, it really helps. So so I want to give some context. What is he really doing here? He describes the planets. He really does this in terms of ballet. So he describes the planets using ballet terminology Actually, you know what? I'm just going to say he describes the planets as, and then I can just go right into the quote, and that's easier. So I'm going to go ahead and take just the quote from here. And that keeps me kind of focused on my point. Now, what I'm noticing here is that it helps to convey his sense of awe, his sense of reverence for this. But the other thing I notice and stands out to me is he's using something that's humanizing. So, and I don't think that those are dissimilar, but I want to kind of pull them together. I think I'm going to try to start by talking about his awe of it. So I'm going to say Tyson creates a sense of awe. I don't like the sense. I'm going to say creates and we'll go with this for now. I can fix it later. So Tyson creates a sense of awe using the technical ballet term pirouette. And again, I don't want to spell this, so I'm going to copy it. Now, I probably want to go ahead and just define it now. Pirouetting is a move used in ballet in which the dancer, notice I don't say ballerina because ballerinas and the male equivalents that I can't think of the word for that right now, actually both can pirouette. So in which the dancer spins. Now, I said here he's creating a sense of awe. So I want to start to talk about that. One of the ways I think he produces this sense of awe is actually in the humanizing it. And so that might be where I want to start. And I'm just kind of thinking about my terms, thinking about what I already have. It's humanizing. It helps me imagine. So that's kind of where I'm going to go and talk about. So I want to maybe talk about my associations with this terminology and kind of maybe expand out the connotations. So ballet is often considered to be one of the, most refined forms of dance. You can kind of see that I'm starting to cannibalize my own language, and that's okay. These are my associations, so those might be the best words to use. So I might say by using this highly technical, or I don't even know if I'm going to say highly technical, this highly specific Tyson, begins So there, I've got that. Now I want to kind of keep expanding on that. Not because I want to add to it, but because I feel like I haven't made my point. I feel like it's not clear yet what I mean. He's made this connection. Why is this connection important? Why does this connection create my sense of awe? So I'm going to go ahead. One can easily imagine I don't want to know. Imagine people So I want to kind of keep talking about this. Now, I want to expand on this, but I'm going to move on to something different. I'm going to come back to this a little bit later, and I'll put this in my final example, and you'll see where I've kind of expanded a little bit more. But one of the best ways, I think, to clarify your explanation is through comparison. And so what I might want to do is think about how the associations are different with some of these other words. So things like rotation and revolution and orbit are very much in the world of astronomy already. So he chose not to use one of those words. So I want to look at why not. So I might say something like, and I want to think about what is different. Well, these words come across as being scientific, but they don't seem to have that same sense of intentionality. Anything can rotate, anything can orbit. In fact, things that orbit are generally not human. Anything can rotate. And again, the things that rotate are considerably not human, not necessarily intentional, much more in the natural world. So, so more commonly associated with study of astronomy. But these words so they lack the human element. So I'm actually going to go back for a second. I don't like that. But these words seem more detached. And less intentional. Then pirouette. Let's see if that's still, yep. Then pirouetting. Since these are actions commonly seen in objects. Again, I'm thinking about orbits, especially there. But pirouette is more intentional, I'm going to go with. But maybe I'll say but to pirouette. You know, I also want to kind of deal with, these seem to be different, but they are different on a different level. There's different a bunch of times than one. And so I'm going to go ahead and just say similarly, because this is another word they could have used instead. Similarly, terms like spin or twist could have been used. Spin, twirl, or twist. You know, but these seem childlike to me. They seem playful. All I can think of is, you know, small little kids like twirling around in circles, or, you know, spinning a top, or any of these things. Those are the images that these convey. These are my associations. So they seem less formal and more playful than a term like pirouette. I'm actually going to go ahead and say playful, almost childlike, because that's my association. So I've got that. And actually, think about the effect of it. What does it do that these are more childlike? Well, it doesn't fit that awestruck. It doesn't create that reverence. So that I'm going to add to, which works against rather than to create the sense of reverence present. No, in the rest. So I don't feel like I'm quite done, but I'm also going to say this would be fine. This is pretty solid. There are things that I want to go back and I want to touch up, but I think you get the idea of my steps. So I'm going to stop it there. You can definitely look at my final product that I've posted on here, and you can see a couple of small differences, but you can generally see where it came from. At this point, it won't matter to me if you keep your work or if you delete it. So that gives you kind of an idea of what we're looking for. Hope that helps.